Let's do it.
Okay. Good evening and welcome, everybody. It's such a great day to be here on this lovely Tuesday. Thank you all for coming to Turning Point. We're going to be talking about the critical race theory today as we kick off our event. While we don't have a huge big turnout, that's all right. We're going to make do with what we have because the matter is you're here and we're going to talk about this event so we can have a little bit of dialogue. Steven's here is going to give a little talk about it, and then we'll have a chance for Q&A after the session. He's finished his keynote speech. So thank you all for coming, and it's going to be great. You're excited? Yeah. Devin's excited. Oh my goodness, guys. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So thank you all for coming, and here's Stephen Davis.
I am so sorry. Boy, oh boy.
Wait, just kidding.
Just kidding. JK. JK.
Do you want to hear a joke?
Yeah.
All right. How we doing, everybody? Can y'all hear me? Do I need a microphone?
No, you're good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. How you doing, everybody? How we doing? Doing okay? There we go. That's all right. I'm so glad to be here with y'all today. It's a little cold. I do not know. We've been talking about this ad nauseum before this event. It is freaking cold here. I don't understand. I'm from Arizona, okay? Arizona. It is freezing for us at 60, okay? I don't know how y'all do it. I was told that it gets to like, negative 50 at times? That is insane. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Goodness gracious, but hey, it's beautiful up here, and I must say so. I really do love the look out here. Respect to you on that. But my name is Stephen Davis. I am a contributor with Turning Point USA. I am a former leftist and a former racist. Now, if people like to say that black people can't be racist, I would like to present you Exhibit A of who I used to be. Okay? So, but it's this thing, hold on, I'm trying to get my stopwatch here. Don't mind me. But it's this thing called critical race theory that I was ensconced in before I even understood what it was all about, right? And it's this Marxist ideology that puts person against person, race against race, and it's having a negative effect on our social cohesion, especially when it comes to us as a country. Now, when you look at what's going on and the agitation that's drawn up as a result of such a thing, it's unfortunate to watch our downfall on both sides, okay? On both sides. Now, when it comes to the left, you have the radical activist, right? The agitator. And then when it comes to the right, you have the radical reactionary, right? And we're seeing this unfortunate situation draw up on the right, where we have a lot of people ensconcing themselves into ethnocentrism. That's not a good path to go. We've already seen what happens when we go down there. So it's incumbent on us to really draw ourselves together and realize that there are people playing the fiddle with us, and we're being caught up in it. We're being agitated to tear at each other, go at each other, and try to tear each other down, and in the process, destroy our social cohesion. So let us talk about this thing called critical race theory, because obviously there's, as we know, there's critical gender theory, there's critical queer theory, all these different theories, critical pedagogy, things of this nature. But we're going to talk about critical race theory, race Marxism, and I want to showcase how it's destroying us from within. So with that being said, let's talk about the indoctrination and the education, and let's see which one it is. Now, the difference, obviously, is thinking critically. The difference between indoctrination and education is being able to think critically. Which one promotes critical thinking? So let's look at this first slide, and let's just see. And you tell me, do these people sound educated or indoctrinated? You tell me.
Texas A&M professor asks, when is it okay to kill whites? New York professor says having a white nuclear family promotes white supremacy. Professor tweets that white people should commit mass suicide. College professor says kill cops, kill all white people, and kill the straights. Professor says all I want for Christmas is white genocide. Georgetown professor says all white people are racist. Trinity College professor calls white people inhuman. Let them fucking die. College professor says believing in hard work is a white ideology. College professor says white people are conditioned to commit mass murder. A professor equates math with white privilege. A professor says white supremacist patriarchy is responsible for the Vegas shooting. Professors hold a white racism course at FGCU. USC professor calls for a Holocaust against all white people. Professor says I'll teach my children to be cautious and distrust friendship with white people. Baltimore professor says white people need to personally give all of their money to black people. College professor says some white people may have to die to solve racism. College professor says white masculinity is a problem for America. Georgetown professor says all white people are racist. Rutgers professor was taken to the NYC hospital for psychiatric evaluation after he tweeted threatening to kill white people. White professor calls all white people to mass suicide because of slavery. Here's a slide from a college classroom that says white tears on a mug. Here's another slide from a college classroom that says white people stay colonizing. White privilege does exist. Bigfoot, unicorns, reverse racism, what do they all have in common? Stating that reverse racism isn't real. Y'all white people are dangerous. The horror story is white people are a plague to the planet. Here's one that says white people are crazy. And finally, how white people plague.
How white people plague society. Boy, oh boy. Again, educated or indoctrinated, right? Now, before we get into the rest of this, we have to first parse this out. What is CRT? What are we talking about? All right, keep throwing around this term. What are we saying? Okay. Well, let's define it. Critical race theory. What is it? It's all about looking at everything through a lens of, well, first of all, it's a belief system in which you look at everything through a lens of race, for which all you see are these power structures, right? Namely systemic racism and white privilege, and how these two things have and continue to order society. So it's everything, you're looking at everything through a lens of race. All right? Now, when you look at this and you're saying, well, why this racial lens? Why? Well, because Gloria Lasted-Billings and William Tate IV, in their 1995 paper entitled Towards a Critical Race Theory of Education, they state that race is the central construct for understanding inequality. The central construct. And they talk about how, they brought up the idea of class and gender, but they are not sufficient enough to talk about and parse out the idea of inequality within America and the West more broadly, okay? So you have to do it with race. Race sufficiently parses this thing out, right? So you're looking at everything through a lens of race, for which all you see are power structures, namely systemic racism and white privilege. Why systemic racism and white privilege, though? Well, because at the end of the day, Barbara Applebaum, professor of Syracuse University, in a 2010 book entitled Being White, Being Good, she states, the relevant point for now is that all white people are racist or complicit by virtue of benefiting from privileges that are not something they can voluntarily renounce. All white people are racist, says Barbara Applebaum. Now, that's the very essence of systemic racism. That's the foundational basis for systemic racism, right? All white people being racist, and they impose their racism throughout society to maintain their power, and they hold down people like me and uplift people like you, right? So that's why it's systemic racism, but why white privilege? Well, white privilege is an offshoot of systemic racism, right? So the relevant point for now is that all white people are racist or complicit by virtue of benefiting from privileges that are not something they can voluntarily renounce. You can't renounce these privileges. So that's why we're looking at everything through a lens of race, which all you see are the power structures, namely systemic racism and white privilege, and how these two things have and continue to order society, all right? So it would be like these glasses I have on, right? Room's well lit. Let's say these glasses have a 95% tint, okay? 95. So everything appears dark to me. And if I came into this room and I said, excuse me, good sir, do you mind turning on the lights for me? What would you then tell me?
The lights are already on.
Oh, okay, this guy's a smart guy, huh? Okay.
Am I wrong?
So I can't see a thing though. So obviously they're not on. So can you just go and turn them on for me, please? What would your advice be to me?
I'm sorry, sir, but you're going to need to take your glasses off.
Oh, take off the daggone glasses, because the glasses have skewed my vision. The lenses that I'm looking through has skewed my vision, right? That's exactly what it is. Or if these were red colored lenses that I had on, and I looked at everything through these lenses, everything would appear red to me. Now, is everything red? No. But that's my perception. That's my viewpoint. Same thing when it comes to racial lenses. If I look at everything through a lens of race, what am I only ever going to see? Race and everything. And that's the problem with society in this day and age, in which all you are looking at is things through a lens of race. And it skews your vision. And it plays on this little thing called confirmation bias. In so much that in every interaction, I'm going to perceive racism because I'm told that first and foremost, by the professors, the smart people, that all white people are racist. So that's going to be my vision. That's going to be my outlook. That's all I'm going to ever see. This is an agitation ideology that has a negative effect on our society. Okay? One side looking at the other side saying that you're always guilty is very agitating. But that's the point. So let's look at another example of an individual who has embodied the critical race theory mindset, and let's see what she has to say when it comes to critical race theory. And does she sound educated or indoctrinated? You tell me.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that up front.
Doesn't she seem sweet? Such a sweetheart, I must say. Now, it's funny because I played this one time and this young lady was like, well, I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with what she said, all right? And if you adhere to critical race theory, you're right. All white people are racist. Barbara Applebaum said that, a professor at Syracuse University, right? But I like to do this little thing called flip it. So let's flip it. That was a black person talking to a bunch of white people. Let's say I'm a white professor or a white person, and this is a room full of black people. And I say, all black people are ghetto, violent criminals. All y'all. See, and we're not going to do this coddling of black tears. No, we're not going to do that. And I know some of y'all looking at me like, well, some of us can work it out. No, you're always going to be ghetto, violent criminals, don't you see? You see, you're born into a life of not being human. And so much you are taught to be demons. In that way, all black people are ghetto, violent criminals. Now, there's not a huge crowd here today, but do you think I'll be able to get to that back door without being accosted severely? Right? Well, what I said was absolutely racist. It was terrible. But the inverse apparently is not. Why is that? Well, because CRT at the end of the day equals CAR. CRT equals CAR. Critical race theory equals culturally accepted or acceptable racism. That's the type of society that they're trying to create. A culturally accepted or acceptable racism. They're using racism to combat racism. That's the name of the game. And again, don't take my word for it. Let's go to Ibram X. Kendi, the foremost critical race theorist of our age. He says, well, the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. You fight fire with fire. Past racism with present racism. Past hate with present hate. Past discrimination with present discrimination. Blacks were discriminated in the past. To fix it, discriminate against whites in the present. That's how you make things better. Very interesting, though. This is a little known character in the civil rights movement. Not a lot of people heard about him or even talk about him that much at all. He's not talked about in academia whatsoever or in the school system. His name's like Martin Luther King or something like that. And he said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. But no, not when it comes to critical race theorists like Ibram X. Kendi. No. You fight darkness with more darkness. You fight hate with more hate. You, as a matter of fact, if there's a house on fire, you don't pour water on it. No. You take a flamethrower to it. That'll make it better. This is the type of society that they're trying to create. An eye for an eye. But as we very well know, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. The Bible even talks about this type of retribution when it comes to Romans 12, 17 through 19 and verse 21. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, Ibram X. Kendi. Be careful what you do to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, saith the Lord. Here's the crux of it. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That's how we're supposed to respond. That's the type of mentality that we're supposed to be promoting to the world, to America, but we're not doing that. An eye for an eye. That's the mentality, especially under critical race theory. Okay? Now, with that being said, let's switch gears and talk about some of the pillars of critical race theory. All right? Now, there's a few pillars that we're going to discuss. Just a few. Yeah, just a few. And we only have time to talk about the first one, but there, as you see, there's a lot of them. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people don't just preach critical race theory. They'll use the euphemistic expressions first, right? Because everyone understands that critical race theory is a part of Marxism and Marxism is bad. And a lot of people try to cover that up. So they'll say, we're not teaching critical race theory, we're teaching cultural competency, educational equity, DEI, with a focus on race, anti-racism. And then when you call them out for those euphemistic expressions, they then start talking about it without talking about it. And they'll use these different pillars. Now, the first and main pillar is, of course, number one, racism is ordinary and permanent in society, right? Then you have interest convergence, material and structural determinism, social construction thesis, the unique voice of color. That's the one I always use in my racial stupor. Oh, that's a fun one. If you pair number 7 and number 8, you get a doozy. Storytelling, narrative weaving, and counter storytelling plus historical revisionism equals the 1619 Project, equals the old school show Roots, equals all these different, the show or the movie Get Out, right? Things of this nature. Questioning the foundations of the liberal order. Yeah, not liberals. Liberals are not on board with this. Not all. Many are not. Many can't stand it. Many call them out. Whiteness as property, that's a really fun one that I don't have time to get into. Intersectionality, anti-racism as praxis. But let's talk about the first one. Now, racism is ordinary and permanent in society. Racism is like a noun. It's in every person, place, or thing, particularly if you're white. Okay, that's the name of the game. There's a clip that I'm about to play. It's from a documentary called Race War through Turning Point USA, featuring yours truly, in which we showcase how the left has been pairing up with the news media to put out racial narratives to be able to divide and conquer the United States of America. So in this opening scene, just take a listen to what this young man I'm talking to has to say, and he will showcase the mindset of a person who believes that racism is ordinary and permanent in society, AKA, number one, AKA systemic racism. So when we're talking about number one, it's basically systemic racism in a nutshell, okay? And when you have this type of mentality that systemic racism rules the roost when it comes to America, this is the type of things that a person will indeed say.
you've been put at the starting point of this race, right?
Okay.
And a white man breaks your leg. He breaks your leg, and now he says, the Chinese man leg is good, the white man leg is good. Now you got to run this race. Now you adapt to being handicapped,
Okay.
right? No matter how much peaceful songs you want to read, how much Bibles you want to open up, the white man ain't gonna love you. He ain't gonna love the religion. He gonna lie. He gonna kill. He gonna steal. He's not to be trusted. You can be in a kumbaya phase what you want, and it sounds like that's what you want. That's okay, right? You're
Okay.
delusional. We didn't slavery.
Not necessarily. No, not at all. Not at all. I look at things for what they are. I don't
What it
judge
is.
people based on the color of their skin. I judge them on the content of the character and their merit.
You can't erase 400 years. You can't.
No one's trying to erase 400 years. Your brain is not here. Your brain's not here. Your brain's up here. So think with your brain instead of your skin color. When you think by your skin color, this is what type of mentality you embody.
You're a traitor, and that's okay to
You
be.
can call me whatever you
Yes,
want.
you are.
It doesn't bother me. I've been called worse by better people. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's okay. You can call me that.
House nigga. No matter what book you read, no matter how much, like I told you, no matter how much Kumbaya songs you want to see, you still a nigga in their eyes.
My. No matter how many songs you want to sing, you're still a nigga in their eyes. Now, why is that? Well, because at the end of the day, racism is ordinary, right? So since white people are always racist, since all white people are racist, this is the type of mentality that they have. Therefore, they'll always hold people like me down and hold people like me back. And this is what I actually believed in the past. And it's consuming the black community so much, especially in this day and age, because critical race theory is becoming so mainstream. And it's acceptable to hate on the basis of race. This is the mindset. So when it comes to racism being ordinary, you know, at the end of the day, as he said, no matter, white people are here to steal, kill, and lie, right? They're not to be trusted. Why? Well, because racism is ordinary. It's not aberrational. It's normal science. The usual way society does business, the common everyday experience of most people of color in this country, don't you see? When it comes to people like me, this is what we go through on a consistent basis. So says a critical race theorist, all right? This is a fun one. The question of the critical race theory is not did racism take place, but how did racism manifest in the situation, see? There's racism in every situation, every interaction. It's just a matter of us decoding it, right? That's the way it works. See how long it took for this man to shake my hand? Goodness gracious. Why don't you take your time, huh? See, I expected that. No, I really expected that. Come on. I'm dealing with a white person. Racism is normative. It's all over society, right? And he was taking one good look at me and said, I don't want to touch this dirty black man. I do not want to do it, right? So as a result, he was reluctant, but he knows he's in front of a bunch of people, so he shook my hand anyways, right? Out of reluctance. It's not because he likes me. He can't stand me. Because racism is indeed ordinary. It's not aberrational. It's normal science. And all white people are racist, so he's embodying it. This is the type of person I'm dealing with here, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you understand? Don't you see? He was a little quicker. And I can appreciate that. But the only reason he was quicker is because he saw how I berated him, right? He saw how I tore him down. So he wanted to show me that he was a good white. He's an ally. So he was quicker on the draw. But really, he's racist too. He's just trying to hide his racism more so than this guy did. And ultimately, this is what I'm dealing with in America. This is what I got to deal with, ladies and gentlemen, as a black guy dealing with white people in America, in this racist America. I know you guys are not racist. Y'all are awesome. But that's the mentality. Racism is in every single situation, in every single interaction. It's just a matter for me to decode it. I have to decode it. Racism is integral, permanent, and indestructible component in society. That comes from Derek Bell. He writes a very interesting book entitled Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism. The permanence of racism, right? And he's more the godfather of critical race theory. Richard Delgado is one of the founding members of critical race theory, but Derek Bell is one of the godfather of CRT. Now, let's get into three things. There's a bevy of them, but there's at least three things. I can't talk. At least three things that critical race theorists have to deny. They have to, right? For CRT to work, they have to deny these three things. All right, number one, color blindness. You can't have a colorblind society, ladies and gentlemen, not as a critical race theorist. Why? Because racism is ordinary. It's not aberrational. It's normal science. You got to look at everything through a lens of race, right? It's all racial. Gloria Ladson-Billings, they talk about this, right? That race is what you use to decode the inequalities within a society, right? So you have to look at everything through a lens of race. So you can't be colorblind as a critical race theorist. You have to look at things through a lens of race. That's a must. Critical race theory, CRT, demands that we be recognized by the color of skin first and foremost and be treated with equity instead of equality. It's the exact antithesis of everything that we believe. We believe in equal opportunities. They believe in equal outcomes. We believe in, content of character. They believe in color of skin. Because that's the only way of looking at everything through a lens of race. That's the only way you can have your racial justice. It's the only way you can get it. Is if you focus on race. The only way you can have your racial equity is if you look at everything through a lens of race. Individualism, self-determination, self-accountability, responsibility, personal agency, self-reliance, and personal goals as a person's priority that goes against the idea of collectivist thinking, goals, and narratives. It's all about the collective, right? You can't be an individual because it's all about the collective. It's all about the collective good, the collective race. It's all about the collective ideology. You have to march to the beat of their drum. You lose your individuality when it comes to critical race theory, because you're a part of the collective, you're a part of the hive mind. It's a monolithic thought processes that you got to have and hold and utilize when it comes to combating anything in society. That's the name of the game. That's why when it comes to, I'll save that for a moment. It's in the collectives that we find reservoirs of hope and optimism, says communist Angela Davis. Now, this next quote comes from a young lady who was responding to that famous quote from Joe Biden. Oh, yes, indeed. If you don't know whether you're voting for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Boy, oh boy. And Nicole Hannah-Jones in response says, well, there's a difference between being racially black and politically black. In a sense, deleted tweet. I wonder why she deleted that. But that's the name of the game. So you have to have the right identity plus the right identity politics to be sufficiently black. See, me, I'm not sufficiently black because I don't have the right identity politics. I have the right identity, but not the right identity politics. I have to think a certain way. I have to act a certain way. I have to behave a certain way. And if I don't, I lose my black card. I've lost it a lot of times. Boy, oh boy. But that's the name of the game. That's the way it works, see? Because it's all about the collective. If I don't act and behave and do everything in the name of the collective, I lose my blackness. Same thing with Hispanics. All right? Okay. Wow, that was awesome. We can no longer have black and brown faces who don't want to be black and brown voices, says Representative Ayanna Pressley. If you're a minority, you lose your minority status. If you are not politically black or politically minority, you have to have the right identity plus the right identity politics. You must think and act and behave the way that they told you to. And if you do not, you lose your minority status. This is why this is why many people call Asians white adjacent. Because that's the only way they can, you're very happy about that. This is the only way they can parse out as to why Asians are so successful. That's the only, never mind the fact that it's culture, never mind the fact that when you apply yourself, that you can actually rise to new heights. No. The only way we can explain that is white adjacent, white adjacency. Now we're gonna play this next clip, also from Race War, in which we're going to talk about this thing called ideological slavery, okay, which is what happens especially within the black community. this ideological slavery, in so much that the shackles are no longer on your hands and on your legs and on your feet. The shackles are now in your mind. The plantation is no longer physical. The plantation is mental. And they're getting people ensconced into this particular way of thinking, in so much you must do certain things the way that they said. And if you don't, then like people like me, I'm a freedman, I think, for myself. And as a person who thinks for myself, I am now castigated as the bad guy. And the ideological slave who is beholden to the different ways of acting and believing and thinking, they're considered the good ones. So let's talk about this ideological slavery, or let's listen to them talk about the ideological slavery and how it's permeated the black community.
The whole idea of black community presupposes that you are not an individual.
Absolutely.
You are a collective, you are a tribe.
Right.
And your tribalism is rooted in the fact that you share a similar skin color that I do. Yeah. So that means we belong together.
Right.
That's a pet peeve I have within this sort of a collectivist, tribalist view of black people. When you use pronouns like us and we, you ain't talk to me.
Come on.
Nobody's calling me to ask me what I think.
Nobody's polling me.
Right.
No.
Nobody's polling me.
No. In fact, truth be told, our voices don't matter because they don't align with the tribalistic view.
Right. Man,
right. We're thinking of sellout as, oh man, we went back to being an individual. No, that's not the sellout.
No.
Right.
The sellout was the person who let go of their individuality as an image bearer of God and adopted the collective and said, I'm gonna be what all of these other people say I'm supposed to be. You sold your soul for what? It's really difficult to determine because the direction of the collective is absolutely destruction.
This reminds me of something that Frederick Douglass once said. Frederick Douglass said, I didn't realize I was a slave until I understood that I couldn't do what I wanted. This is what ethno-tribalism says, where when you sell out to an ethno-tribalist worldview, it's the tribe that tells you what you can do and what you can't do. You're a slave at that point.
You said it was ideological slavery.
Ideological slavery.
Right?
Well, you don't want to be a slave to anyone. I don't. You don't need chains here. All you need is chains here.
That's it.
So what's happening is those who are wanting to hold us ideologically captive, as they watch us escape, are claiming that we're the ones who are selling out.
That's it.
Right.
I didn't realize I was a slave until I understood I couldn't do what I wanted. Boy, oh boy. That is a quote that definitely resonates within the black community right now, because you are supposed to do the black thing. And if you don't, you're the bad guy. And if you do, all you're doing is showcasing that you're a good slave, because you can't think as you want. You can't act as you want. You have to act as they say, which is wholly detrimental, especially when it comes to black culture. Now, the last one, meritocracy. We have one more slide after this, and then I got to scold the right. Racism is ordinary. Meritocracy, right? If you're critical race theorist, you can't believe in meritocracy. The idea that people should excel and succeed based on effort, ability, and character, which is the best shield against racism, especially as a black person. Like if this was a room full of white supremacists, right? White supremacists. And I wanted to convince you that I'm just as good, if not better, right? What would be the best way to convince y'all? Would DEI putting me to the top of the pile convince y'all that I'm just as good, if not better? Affirmative action? I don't think so. Or my ability, effort, and character. That's what would showcase and be the deciding and determining factor within you guys to understand that I'm just as good, if not better, right? That's the name of the game. So critical race theorists, though, they don't believe that. Focusing only on merit covers up the systems and advantages that keep racism in place, says Robin DiAngelo. Don't you see? Focusing only on merit keeps racism in place, right? That's the way it works, according to her. The idea that Americans can overcome racism through sheer effort is a myth that ignores the cumulative weight of history, says Ta-Nehisi Coates. Now, what do you think happens if you drill this into the minds of inner city youth, inner city black kids. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter your ability, effort, and character. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to overcome racism. Because if you think that, you're ignoring the cumulative weight of history, don't you understand? There's nothing more detrimental than this type of mindset. And it's really sad because I see when it comes to what Ta-Nehisi Coates says, that the idea that Americans can overcome racism through sheer effort is a myth. Well, then they're ignoring Booker T. Washington and his legacy. Advised presidents. Advised presidents. That's plural. Right? Frederick Douglass, vice president as well. When it comes to the Negro Business League, who bought up large swaths of property in which white tenants had to live and work under black people. As a matter of fact, let's go to the Tuskegee Airmen. Who here has ever heard of the Tuskegee Airmen? All black fighter pilot group during World War II. They were escort bomber group, for the flying fortresses. And they would escort these bombers to safely, there and bring them back. And they had previously had a bunch of white pilots flying them, escorting them, in which they were getting shot down en masse. Hundreds to thousands of bombers were getting shot down under the protection of white pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen, the all-black fighter pilot group regiment, again, hundreds to thousands, not hundreds of thousands, hundreds to thousands of people, of planes were shot down under the escort of white fighter pilots. The Tuskegee Airmen only lost about 25. That's it. Do you think those fighter pilots were really concerned, or should I say those bombers, do you think those pilots were really concerned about the color of the Tuskegee Airmen's skin? Or did they care about their ability, effort, and character when it came to their performance? In so much that they were clamoring to fly with the black pilots during a time of heightened racism. They wanted to fly so badly because they knew that they were going to come home. That's what ability, effort, and character does within the mindsets of people. It changes people's minds and hearts. That's the name of the game. As Booker T. Washington put it, every persecuted individual and race should get month's consolation out of the great human law, which is universal and eternal. That merit, no matter under what skin found, in the long run is recognized and rewarded. That's the name of the game. You then precipitate your own upward mobility for generations to come. That's what merit gives you. It's actually kind of funny because the only place where DEI is not wanted is in sports. No one wants DEI when it comes to basketball. Basketball is about, 70 to 75% black. No one's begging for DEI. No one's saying, no, not your merit. No, we want to cut off about 25% of black people and raise about 25% of white people and put them in NBA. No one said that, ever. Okay? I wonder why. Football is about 55% black. No one's begging for DEI when it comes to football because they understand that the merit of the gameplay and the merit of the character matters. Well, funny how that works. One of my favorite quotes of all time by Frederick Douglass, and this resonates to this day. He was alive in the 1800s, and this is 2025, and this quote still reigns true. A change in our political position would do little without character. Character is the important thing, and without it, we must continue to be marked for degradation and stamped with a brand of inferiority. With character, we shall be powerful. Nothing can harm us long when we get character. Character is the name of the game. Character changes everything. And he is not lying. The reason that the black community is at the bottom of many socioeconomic statistics is because of our lack of character. A change in our political position. Money and resources being thrown, trillions of dollars spent on the black community. And we are where we are because it's not about political positioning or capital. It's about our character. One of the first things that Booker T. Washington focused on within the Tuskegee Institute when new students would come in is he would teach them how to dress properly, take care of your clothes, make your bed, shower, things of this nature. He had to start at the very bottom with individuals to get them to do the most basic of things and become great at it. And then we can move on from there. And I dare say when it comes to the black community, we need to start from the bottom up to do better within our community. And it's really sad that many people abhor this idea. Now, my last one, last slide. Talking about education and indoctrination. This is indoctrination, full on, full stop. This right here. At the very heartbeat of racism is denial. Are you racist? You are a liar hiding your racism. Are you a racist?
I have no reason to think I am.
Oh, another liar hiding his racism. You, sir? No. Liar hiding your racism. You? Nope. Liar hiding your racism. I'm not going to ask you because you're not white. Liars. The whole lot of you. You're using the same words that white supremacists use. Don't you see? Huh? You're sharing in the words of white supremacy. Jim Crow, segregationists, said that they're not racist. Huh? Lynchers said that they're not racist. Slave owners. You're using the same words as slave owners. Don't you get it? So you just showcase your racism. Huh? How about that? You deny your racism, showcase your racism. But on the other hand, if you admit you're racist, then you're racist. It's a no-win situational trap. These dialectical maneuvers that these people promote to entrap and ensconce people into a certain way of thinking, that is not education, ladies and gentlemen. That is indoctrination. And it's having disastrous effects on our social cohesion. Now, here comes the fun part. I've been railing on about the left. Now it's time to do some housekeeping. Boy, oh boy, we got some issues on the right. The whole point is agitation. The whole point of critical race theory, right? It's the activist on the left versus the reactionary on the right. And for so many times, you're a racist. 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 You're racist. So after a while, right, if I were you, no, I'm not. 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 Oh, you know what? All right. You want racist? I'll show you racist. Yeah. You want to call me that? You want to label me that? Okay. I'm going to show you racism. And that's what we're starting to see on the right. We're starting to see this mentality fostered. Ethnocentrism by certain individuals out there playing the same identity politic game. Same exact thing. Blaming whole swaths of races, ethnicities as the problem within America. Now, I'm not saying you can't have problems with countries. You can have problems with countries. You can have issues with countries. Absolutely. Countries can be definitely corrupt. However, when you say that all of this people, all of that people are bad, and as a result, it's us versus them, it's still the same Marxism, the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy. They're bad. We're the good ones. They're the oppressors. I'm the oppressed. We have to rise up as the oppressed class and go up against these individuals. What is woke? Woke is having an awakened critical consciousness, right? Of whether it's race, critical race theory, of gender, critical gender theory, queerness, critical queer theory, so on and so forth. You have an awakened critical consciousness. You are now awake. You are woke. You're awakened to the dichotomy, the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy. You're awakened to the identity politics. You see that this particular identity is the problem. You see that men are the problem. Critical gender theory. The oppressor-oppressed dichotomy when it comes to the patriarchy versus women, and how the patriarchy is oppressing women. You know, the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy when it comes to queer theory, when it comes to queer versus straight. It's all the same thing. So when it comes to us on the right, and we're embodying this idea that we need to embody ourselves into this ethnocentrism and deem all minorities as a problem, we need to get them out of our country. Again, there's a lot of issues when it comes to immigration. But when you demonize entire swaths of individuals simply based on the color of their skin or their ethnicity, ladies and gentlemen, that is a problem. That is a problem within America. Two more thoughts. The nerd in me is about to come out. Who's ever seen Avengers 1 and 2? There we go. Fellow nerds, let's go. All right. So, what happened in Avengers 1 with Hawkeye? What happened? He was put into that spell by Loki, right? As Tony Stark says, his little spear of destiny. So he was put under the spell, spent most of Avengers 1 under this hypnosis as a part of the collective, as a part of the hive mind, all right? Avengers 2. Every other Avenger got hypnotized, this time by the Scarlet Witch. Black Widow, Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, all of them, except Hawkeye. And he said, I've done the whole mind control thing already. Not a fan. Now, as a black conservative who has lived my life fully racist, right, for a large amount of my life, I'm out of this hypnosis. But now I'm seeing the same thing, just like Hawkeye witnessed the rest of his team go down. I'm now watching the same thing, just like him. And a lot of my fellow black conservatives and white conservatives who are former racists too. We've already fallen for the identity politic game. And we're watching, one by one, people I've called friends fall into this racial identitarian ideology, this racial identity politics, and it's disgusting. We have to realize who we are and whose we are. Because as the body of Christ, there is no Jew nor Greek. There is no male nor female. There is no slave nor free. We are all one under Christ Jesus. All of us. And I love that verse because it talks about ethnicity, Jew nor Greek, talks about gender, male nor female, and it talks about class, slave nor free. And one last thought. When it comes to the idea of, well, Ephesians 5:11 have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Now, the question, what is darkness? What is darkness? Anybody? What's the definition of darkness? Yep, there it is. Lack of light, the absence of light. Darkness is not the presence of darkness, the abundance of darkness. Darkness is the absence of light. So when it comes to the darkness that's encroaching our country, when it comes to the darkness that's encroaching the right, and boy, is it encroaching. It's not because there's just a lot of people who are dark. It's just, well, I'm dark, but if what it really is, or what it really amounts to, is the amount of light that has receded. The boldness that has left our side. The strength, the valor that we once embodied. So if we're going to consider ourselves to be the moral arbiters of America, we have to act like it. And we need to stop the foolishness that's encroaching and the darkness that's encroaching our side. We are the United States of America, not the divided states of America. So let's start acting like it. Thank you for your time. Let's get some questions going. Oh, don't be shy. We're family here. Yes, indeed.
So critical theory, not just critical race theory, but primarily critical race theory, at this point in the last however many years, has turned brother against brother, it's turned countryman against countryman, it's made everyone miserable, and it's based on fundamental presuppositions that contradict one another. How do we take the glasses off our friends that have put them on, and how do we prevent those that are looking at them from picking them up?
Yeah. Well, I would dare say, because a blanketed approach I don't think is conducive when it comes to this fight, right? You have to get very specific. That's why I like to focus on critical race theory, right? You have people like Dr. James Lindsay. He claimed himself to be a former leftist, right? He's one of the foremost critical theorists, not critical theorists, but anti-critical theorists. And formerly of the left, I would say he's probably more of a classical liberal to a centrist. Absolutely phenomenal human being, a wealth of knowledge. That's why I always try to explain to people, liberals, as much as we want to own the libs, they're not the problem. The radical leftists are the problem. We can have conversations with liberals. Right? I have conversations with liberals all the time. Freaking love liberals, right? Because their nature is good. They're good-hearted. But when it comes to the radical leftists, they want to fundamentally transform America, as Obama so eloquently put it. They want to destroy, they want to decolonize, they want to deconstruct. So it's a different conversation. So when it comes to Dr. James Lindsay, he's a very good authority on all of it, right? But not a lot of us are like that. So pick your niche and attack it, right? Showcase how they're really putting one against the other. Learn the information, learn the things that they're trying to do, learn their tactics. They are trying to put man against woman, right? Toxic masculinity, all right? They come with all these different ideologies that they try to throw at us. When it comes to, queer theory, right? Straight versus queer. They try to make us as enemies. When it comes to critical race theory, they're trying to do the same thing with race. So it's a matter of us learning the material, right? And showcasing basic truths, debunking things like systemic racism, right? Showcasing why it's not a thing and what they're actually talking about is something completely different that deserves a lot of time to really get into. But that's the name of the game. And that's what I would say to do is learn the material first. Learn their tactics, right? Learn what it is that these people are ultimately espousing, what it is that they want to bring about, right? They want to deconstruct, they want to decolonize, they want to destroy. So if you understand that, you understand their end goal, work backwards from there. And that's what I would say, is just have the conversations. You have to open up the channels of dialogue. We have to do that. This one thing that we've been getting better at when it comes to the right, but now we're shutting each other down on the right, so it's very counterproductive. But we have to open up the channels of dialogue to be able to do so. And in doing so, hopefully we can open minds. I'm only here because people planted seeds throughout my life. And that's the only way I was able to wake up. The conversation you may have with the individual may not come to fruition and may not change their mind right there, but you're planting a seed. And that's all we are called to do. So let's plant the seeds necessary to bring about the change.
Thank you, sir. It was a great talk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the talk. That was very insightful. I don't know too much about critical race theory. I've definitely heard of it, but to hear it more in depth was very helpful. Actually, his question technically was already answered. So, but something I thought about, you said previously you used to have a very racist mindset, and what you mentioned with that. Can you share kind of the no pun intended, turning point with that? Share your experience with that?
Absolutely. Oh boy, I don't want to have to do this. Just in case, right? Just in case y'all had the preconceived notion that I'm that Stephen Davis. I'm not. There is a football player, Stephen Davis, because I don't want to start talking about my story and then be like, dang, that football player was a racist guy. I'm not that Stephen Davis. There is another Stephen Davis. I'm not him. So with that being said, Don't want to malign his name. So it was around 2017, 2018 when I wanted to get involved into the realm of politics. And by then I had a fully ensconced racist mind. Now, I was battling with it because as a Christian, obviously being racist and being a Christian doesn't mix. Oil and water doesn't mix. So it was something I was constantly battling with. My mom had some situations happen in her life, and she kind of spoke that into me, and it started growing and festering and things of that nature. So I started really getting a racist mentality of the white man's trying to hold me down and hold me back. And a lot of times it's always family. It starts in the family. Racism really starts in the family. And as time went on, I started really getting embittered and of course, hanging around people who fostered that type of mentality within me because they were the same way. And it was around 2017, 2018, I wanted to jump into the realm of politics. So I was like, you know what, there's this guy named Trump. Now, I love Trump personally, WWE, Battle of the Billionaires, freaking awesome. He did the ground and pound with Vince McMahon. Oh, it was great. But then I was told that he's a racist, so now I got to hate him. Collective ideology, all that. So I said, I'm going to beat him down with facts. So I'm going to beat these Trump supporters down with facts, right? But first I got to do my research. Got to do that research first. So I started doing my research and I started realizing how the media manipulated a lot of things that he said. One of them being verifying people on both sides, that whole thing. And started coming to the realization that I've been duped. So I started listening to the right. Started with people like Ben Shapiro, then Steven Crowder, then eventually Candace Owens, and of course, Charlie Kirk, the four horsemen for me. And in listening to the things that they were saying, I was really confronted with a lot of my own demons. And I started realizing that there's a lot within me that I am supposed to be fighting against. If I'm supposed to be fighting against racism, I got to fight the man in the mirror first and foremost, because the ideologies that I had in my mind were wholly destructive and wholly hateful and anti-Christian. So then I started getting into the Word of God, and boy, oh boy, that will slap you around a fair bit of times. And if you're not getting slapped around by the Bible, you ain't reading it right, okay? That's the whole essence of what the Bible does. It convicts. I always say, like, when it comes to a liberal or a leftist, coming to the light and coming and being confronted with truth, it's like a vampire being exposed to the sun. It burns us up, but it's a purifying fire. And it was a necessary fire, and I'm so glad that I went down that path. And that eventually opened my eyes to my own problems, and I started dealing with them through the Word of God, and now I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
First off, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So here at UMD, there is a requirement that you have to graduate, and that is in the category of race, power, and justice.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I've had a couple discussions with my advisors about it, and I've looked through the catalogs. There's stuff like, there's classes on whiteness, there's classes about how algorithms for computer sciences can be racist. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but I've been holding off taking that sort of requirement for a while now, but when it comes to time that I'm about to graduate and, if they're not going to let me graduate without it, how would you say is like a wise way to kind of go about that?
Okay. Now, there's oftentimes a sentiment prevailing, especially within the right. And some people have corrected themselves on it, prominent people, as a matter of fact, that they say to go along to get along, right? Just go along. You need the grade, right? You need the grade. Just do it. Just do all the things that they say and all of it. I disagree. The reason the country is in the place that it is because we refuse to stand up when we need to. Now, I'm not saying you have to rock the boat completely, but when it comes to your assignments, I would take a more courageous stance and a well-rounded approach when it comes to the things that you have to espouse, right? Of course, for me, I'm not a college student. And I have a very bull in the china shop type of mentality, right? And my outlook is you stand no matter what. You do not compromise no matter what. You go through the path that they want you to go, but you do not compromise your values. You don't compromise your ideology. If you're called to write a paper, write the paper, but put the truth in there. Quotes are beautiful. You can't deny quotes. That's why I love quotes so much. I try to memorize as many quotes as I can because you can't deny their own words. So when you combat it from that point of view, and again, you don't have to be overtly combative, but put up make your stand. Real quick, I used to do personal private security for 14 years, okay? I had a client that I used to work for, made good money, real good money. But a part of my job was to turn my head on certain things that would happen. And I compromised in that regard. And I'm disgusted with myself for doing that. You never compromise who you are. It doesn't matter for what or who or when. You never compromise. You lose a piece of yourself when you do that. That goes back to the character, the integrity of who you are as a human being. You do not compromise, not for a degree, not for status, not for money. Because if you do it once, it's so much, I'm speaking from experience here. It is so easy to do it again and again and again. And then you find yourself in a position like, how the heck did I get here? It all starts with that one time. So my advice would be to you is to be courageous. You're going to receive the pushback, but I guarantee you other people are watching. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Everyone's watching you to see what you do. If you don't believe in it, make your voice known. You may get a worse grade, but people know that there are courageous people like you standing up. And that's what this country needs. Panic is contagious, but so is courage. And we need a courageous lot of individuals in this world to be able to make things better. So that would be my advice. Stand strong, stand tall, do what they want you to do, but rock the boat a little bit when it comes to being truthful and honest.
Thank you.
Hi, as everyone else said, thank you for coming. But mine, it's not necessarily a question, it's more of a comment. When I went to like a private school when I was younger, and I didn't know that race was a thing until I hit public school. So all my friends were just a different shade of tan. Like I was in Girl Scouts and we made a picture of our troop. Everyone was a different shade of tan and I was hot pink, as I am. And so I guess my comment to question would say to you is, how do you feel that a lot of kids and a lot of people that I've met didn't really know that race was a thing until they hit public school?
That's the unfortunate aspect. It's actually, there's a great quote by the late Bodie Backham. He says, you can't send your children to Caesar and then be surprised when they come back as Romans. Boy, oh boy, is that true. The public school sector is disgusting. And there's a lot of foolishness in it. And I would dare say to anybody here, if you're going to send your children, your soon to be children, if you have children, obviously, if you're going to send your children to public school, be on top of your children. That is mandatory. The public school system will chew your kids up and spit them out. So it's incumbent on us to be on top of our kids when it comes to their education. Our job as parents, especially when it comes to the Bible, it says to train your child in the way they should go when they get old, they will not depart from it. We are supposed to do that. We are supposed to train our children, right? Now, me personally and my wife, we're going to homeschool, right? Because my primary responsibility as a father is to protect my children. So if I'm going to protect my children and let them go to public school where they're unprotected and they're getting inundated with all kinds of crazy ideology, well, then I'm not doing my job, especially if I'm not following up and following through. So I would definitely say what we need to do as parents is be on top of our children at all times, really protect them, because when they get into public school, boy, oh boy, that's when it all goes downhill. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Steven.
What's going on?
So not to sound liberal here, but I'm half white, half Hispanic, and growing up I've been called, a bunch of slurs my whole life, but, kind of like late middle school, early high school, I started to just not care and not place myself in like a victim mentality.
That's it.
Like I have a lot of people that kind of oppose me who are Hispanic and obviously white, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess how do you like approach people to approach them in a way to make them understand you don't have to be a victim, you don't have to kind of play that role, and to understand like for me some of the slurs that I've been called, like honestly they don't really matter to me.
Yeah.
Like if you take a look at the slur spick, it just means short for Hispanic, which I didn't know that till like very recently.
Yeah.
But I don't care. So how do you approach people like that to kind of show them you don't have to be a victim, and here's how you can show them?
That's the difficult one. The victim mentality is one of the few things that you're rewarded to embody. And that's the problem with it. You see that throughout America, especially with this whole social justice movement. You're promoted. You're given more accolades, right? Especially with intersectionality, right? All these forms of oppression. It's the oppression Olympics, right? Well, I'm black. I'm a black man. Well, someone may be a black woman. They're higher on the victim scale than I am, on the oppression scale. Well, then you have a black transgender. They're even higher. We have a black transgender who's disabled. They're even higher. You have a black transgender who's disabled and an illegal alien. They're even higher, right? And it's just victim Olympics in which the more oppression points that you have, the more status you're given. So you have to tell people to reject something that gives them benefits. But it's the same thing with welfare. You got to reject the welfare to be able to grow, right? People get ensconced in this idea of welfare being the end all be all for me. I get this free money, I get this free stuff, I get this free this, free that, but that diminishes your character. So the same thing with victimology and victim status. You got to get people to get rid of that to be able to grow as a person. If you become a victim long enough, you eventually will become the perpetrator of your own victimology. Because you got to keep accruing these victim points. You got to keep putting yourself in situations in which you're still steadily the victim. So it's hard to get people to rid themselves of this type of mentality. But it's one of those things where you just got to get them to understand if you want to grow as a person, as a human being. And I always appeal to, when it comes to Christianity, because I'm a Christian. So when I'm talking to other Christians, I'm like, well, God didn't call you to be a victim. All right, you're not a victim. You're not supposed to consider yourself as a victim within the kingdom of God. You are a victor. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Of course, that one's taken out of context a lot of times, but you can be strong with plenty, or you can be strong with not a lot. Either way, your sustenance comes from God. It doesn't matter. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I would go to the Word of God if they're a Christian. If not, I would just say, if you want to be a better version of yourself, you got to rid yourself of the victim mentality. You have to. So that's what I would say.
Because I'm the chapter president for Duluth here, and they treat me like I'm white, and they think I betray my Hispanic race. But you would say that Christianity is probably the most important to, understand that victim mentality, and for them to kind of lead them away from that.
Yeah, that's the most convicting. Because you can argue with me all you want, right? As a Christian, right? If we're talking Christian to Christian, you can argue with me all you want. We can go back and forth. Argue with the Word of God. Box with God. Your arms are not long enough. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I always try to point people to the Word of God and showcase that in the Bible, this is what the Bible says. Now you can debate me all you want. I'm just a man. I'm just flesh and blood. Debate God. And they usually can't. Obviously.
Thanks, Steven.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
What's going on?
I was wondering how I could fight this, when I see a post of racism online or on social media.
I like that. That's the type of mentality that we need more of. Because a lot of times, I don't know if anyone's ever said anything bad about certain people, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to give him credence. We'll call him Voldemort. You say anything about Voldemort, people will jump into your comic section, the bots and the bad actors, bad faith actors, and you will get a bunch of $7,000, things on your comments. If you know, you know. And it's very frustrating. It's very annoying. But so is the path that we walk. It's a hard path. As men, especially as a young man, it's a hard path to walk as a man. But as men, we're supposed to stand on business come what may. We are very weak men if we falter when it comes to struggle, and when it comes to hardships, and when it comes to things that oppose us. So we have to stand strong, and I think it just really boils down to boldness. And you have to really count the cost. Are you willing to give up certain things, certain friends, certain accolades, certain status for the sake of the truth? And if you are, then the choice is easy, right? And I think that when it comes to you, and you're going to face the backlash, you're going to. That's the nature of good going against evil. You will face backlash. But you just got to stay strong and keep plowing and keep going. It's not easy. It won't be easy. It never is. In the Bible, we're told repeatedly to endure hardship. So let's do that. Let's endure hardship. And I think that's the main way of doing it. Just going full throttle, like a train, go on through. Nothing's going to stop you, and keep that mentality about you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How's it going, Steven?
What's going on?
All right, so this is a question on my behalf, but also to all of the young males out there.
Yeah.
As a young adult male myself, I have witnessed a bunch of horrifying things in my life already that I'm not proud to say I've seen or been a part of. Every single day, and I'll admit this, I still tout the line between extremism and moderatism. It's an ever-encompassing battle.
Yeah.
And currently in this world, witnessing this almost collapse of nations and struggle and mass political violence, how can young males such as myself, how can we steel ourselves to not walk the line of extremities, but to remain rational in our thought?
I love that. I absolutely love that. Honestly, for me, as a Christian, it's just the word of God, right? Whenever I debate about Voldemort, I use the word of God. Forget the personal attacks. Forget all that. Use the Bible as your club, right? Especially for people who profess to be Christians. If you're going to profess to be a Christian, then that means you're adhering to a certain standard, right? Just like with a lot of leftists, they adhere to critical race theory. Okay, if you adhere to critical race theory, then you have to adhere to the tenets. So I'm going to use the tenets against you, right? Same thing when it comes to being a Christian. If you claim to be a Christian, then you're going to adhere to that word of God. And you're going to adhere to the precepts of what the Bible says. And I would dare say to anybody here, if you claim to be a Christian, you have to steel yourself as a Christian. The BIBLE, the basic instructions before leaving earth. Embody that. You cannot call yourself a Christian while doing the opposite of what Christians do or what Christ did as the example, what the apostles set, the example that they set, was they followed Christ. So if we're going to claim to be these Christians, right, I'm going to claim the banner of Jesus Christ, but yet still do everything antithetical to him, then we need to really realize, who are we really? Are we a bunch of antichrists? Is that who we are? A bunch of people professing, showcasing a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof? Is that what we're doing? So I would dare say, get into that word. That's something I've been doing a lot lately, is really getting into that word, because that fortifies you, and put on that full armor of God so you can withstand the wiles of the enemy and reduce the pride within your own self. Come at them with love and compassion, but with strength. And if you ask me, that's exactly what Christ did. So let us embody that and do exactly that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I know this might be sounding like a broken record now, but thank you for coming, and I really enjoyed your speech.
Thank you.
My question was, I liked your Hawkeye metaphor a lot and the context behind it, but to slightly warp your words, you have lived with the poison, so now you know what it tastes like. And so I'm wondering if, in your opinion, what are the finer nodes of that poison? How to detect it?
Well, expound a little bit, if you mind. Like, what are some of the subtle tactics that poison, or the effects of it, or I'm misunderstanding.
I mean, that like race theory thing you were talking about with the Hawkeye metaphor.
Yeah.
And how you have lived with it. Now you can detect it probably better than most people.
Yeah.
Through your experiences. I'm kind of wondering, like, what are the finer nodes that you've noticed with it?
I'm sorry, the last part was
the finer nodes that you've noticed with this, can't think of it.
The poison, the mind control.
Yeah, the poison mind control aspect.
Were the finer note? You said the finer nose?
Nodes.
Nose? I'm so sorry. I am not this slow. I promise you I'm not this slow.
You seem like a very
I
intelligent
swear to
man.
you.
It's just, sorry, maybe I'm putting in like a weird metaphor, but I mean, yeah, the subtlety of.
Oh, what's the subtlety of it?
Because I don't share your story.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't have your experiences.
Right.
I don't have your experiences to go back on. How would I go about gaining knowledge from you on how to detect the poison?
Boom. Okay, I'm so sorry.
You're all good. I shouldn't have put it on.
No, that's me. Trust me. Everyone understood it, obviously, except for me. I'm sorry, guys. So I would dare say, at least compare it to the three that I gave you. The color blindness, compare anything to color blindness, individualism, and meritocracy. If they're trying to get you to reject those in any type of instance, you realize that you're starting to deal with something more nefarious and sinister, right? If they're saying that, it doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter how much. It doesn't matter what I do at the end of the day, man. White people are always going to do what they do. Well, you're talking about meritocracy, and you're talking about the first pillar. Racism is ordinary, right? So it does take a little bit of ensconcing yourself into critical race theory and learning a little bit about it to be able to detect it, right? A person like a detective, right? They have to kind of train themselves to be able to see certain things and notice certain inconsistencies. And that's the same thing when it comes to critical race theory. If I'm saying stuff like, oh, well, you don't understand what it is for black people, you wouldn't know anything about critical race theory, you wouldn't know a single solitary thing, man. I know all about, I'm doing the voice of color thesis, right? Standpoint epistemology, right? If I'm saying, well, you don't understand the story of black people in America, the story of black people and this and that, now I'm using storytelling, narrative weaving, and counter storytelling, right? So when you understand the different pillars of critical race theory and the different things that are being thrown your way, you understand what it is that they're trying to do, where they're trying to lead you, because it's very subtle. I've been looking at some of these workbooks, these worksheets that these whiteness studies and things of this nature, and it's good. Mm-hmm. Good as in it's subtle, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know a bit about it to be able to recognize it when you see it. And I think that's the best way of really being able to steer your way away from it.
Makes sense. So no shortcuts. You gotta work out the muscle in order to strengthen it.
Dive in.
Yeah.
Dive in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Firstly, thank you. I found it very thought-provoking. My first question is if you could re-emphasize it quickly. You believe that a meritocracy is what? It is one of the three pillars that people will deny in pursuit of supporting CRT, critical race theory. However, just want to double check to make sure I'm understanding that right.
Sure. Yes. Yes, sir.
And while I agree that a meritocracy is certainly an honorable goal, and in theory it should be achievable, we will take education, for example. It is perfect representation. We recently had affirmative action removed, I believe it was last year. But meritocracy doesn't really seem the level of achievable that we think it is. We have, and I'll say it in a more broader sense, moving away from race, we have IEP and 504 plans because some individuals learn differently. A huge outcome in determining education is the funding that a school gets. There is a correlation between household income and, once again, the education you are able to achieve. One thing that I found fun to learn about in English class, and something great our professor said, was what makes us human is to defy the odds. And I would like to imagine, giving myself a little more credit, that I am an example of someone that came from lower and ended up higher than your average individual. But what do you believe is the correct approach for people that do not have such luck in this instance when it comes to a meritocracy?
Yeah, and that's a good question. That's a great question. We're talking more about the material determinism here, right? The idea that someone's material possessions and situation kind of dictates their lot in life. But if that is the case, right, then people like Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass and a lot of these, the first Black Republicans, who rose themselves up out of poverty, who were ex-slaves, who were able to achieve so much within their lives. The very fact that they were able to do so is, even in spite of the material possessions and the situations that would uplift someone, they were still able to do so, right? A lot of first generation Asians, right, who come to America, excel, right, succeed in such grand fashion. Same thing with Nigerians, right? Nigerians come from Africa, come to America, and a lot of times they're even more successful than white people, right? So what we're looking at ultimately is the character of an individual, right? And that's what I would oftentimes promote, is the character of an individual showcasing their ability, effort, and character will be able to rise and help them succeed and push them into higher heights, in so much that in any other country, you're not able to do that. But here, there's so much upward mobility that you're able to rise to those situations or rise to the occasion if you just have the opportunity. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that some people have it worse than others. I was very poor, right? I've been homeless twice in my life, right? And I could say that ultimately my situation and circumstance prevents me from being successful, right? My situation and circumstance, my lack of material possessions and my lack of quote unquote opportunity has led me to this path. There's no way out, right? I could say that, but then I wouldn't rise above and I wouldn't be in the situation I am in now. And I'm not rich now, but I'm a lot better, right? So I would dare say meritocracy is the best way, it is the best form of being able to rise up. Being able to give people handouts doesn't help people rise. It actually immobilizes them, right? It retards their growth. Throwing material possessions at somebody who doesn't know how to utilize it. This is something that, again, Booker T. Washington recounts in his book, Up From Slavery. He talks about how poor people will buy these grandfather clocks, spend all this money on top hats and grandfather clocks that didn't even work, but it was just a status symbol, right? That they utilized to be able to look a certain way and be a certain way and think that they're a certain thing. That doesn't help you, right? The material doesn't help you. Ultimately, it's your own mindset, it's your own character, and embodying the necessary traits to precipitate your own upward mobility for generations to come.
It is very motivational what you say, and I agree that there is an aspect of character involved, and it is good to hear that you were able to overcome the odds. It sounds like they are much more detrimental and you overcame more than I have. But it seems right now that the only thing you're stating is that your character and related things are the determining factor. Life isn't always fair, and you don't get to choose the hand that you're given.
Yeah.
There are different levels of success with first-generation Asians, with first-generation Nigerians, and so forth. There is for everyone.
Yeah.
But do you not think that it's a bit unfair to state that just your character is the determining factor, and maybe perhaps part of the reason why critical race theory exists is because there is a not zero amount of people that have tried their best to overcome the odds, but life simply just said no, and instead they group together and they form these individuals that support critical race theory as this sort of coping or defense mechanism.
Yeah, and you can definitely say that, and I think, that is worthy of consideration. But at the end of the day, when you look at critical race theory and its origins, it's very Marxian in origin, right? Again, Marxism is all about the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, and it utilizes agitation as a means to rile up people to be able to go up against and overthrow a society for the eventual overthrow of any particular area that you're in, right? So when I look at a system like critical race theory, I see the nefarious ideology behind it, and I see what it ultimately is trying to do, and I don't look at that as something beneficial, right? As a matter of fact, Herbert Marcuse, in his 1969 essay on liberation, entitled An Essay on Liberation, he talks about this new revolutionary potential is designed to tear down, and I quote, a well-functioning, prosperous society. It's a protest against its form, and the form is in the capital F, meaning the laws, morality, and the ideology behind it. So when you look at what it is that these people are promoting, Herbert Marcuse is one of the foremost critical theorists of our age, well, of the 70s, 60s, and whatever have you. And he's spelling out exactly what critical theory is designed to do. It's supposed to tear down a well-functioning, and this is a direct quote, a well-functioning, prosperous society. It's a protest against its form, the imposition of a false morality and false values, is what he says. So the whole purpose of critical theory is to deconstruct. The whole purpose is to tear down. I don't see any situation within the United States of America where tearing down the United States of America will make us better. And even if you did, let's say there was some grand scheme to tear down the United States of America and you want to tear us down to our bare bones. Well, okay, if we did that, we tear the United States of America down all the way to the Declaration of Independence. Even in that, it says, all men are created equal, which goes back to colorblindness, which is what critical race theorists don't believe in.
I believe there was a bit of miscommunication, but once again, your answer was thought-provoking, and I thank you for your time.
I thank you. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Due to time constraints, we have 5 more minutes. So as much as I would love to have all your questions answered, we're going to stop it. Go for it.
Hey, thanks, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
So my name's Adam Becker. I'm here with my wife, Randa. I was interviewed by Liz Collin on Alpha News not too long ago about some stuff that I learned while working at the public school here. What was interesting is they started out this professional development day for me with a whole thing about race, saying that there's this elite group that manufactured the race story so that the white race would supervise and police all the colored people because we were all immigrating, and then it led into the whole gender thing after that, this gender mapping agenda. So long story short, we're not putting our kids in public school. We don't work at the public school anymore. But all this stuff has opened my eyes to a lot. Since I did that interview, I'm getting comments and messages and people telling me their stories. And like you, I have my own story too. I came from being homeless. I grew up in a suburban area, but then I turned my back on the whole thing. I said, I was entitled, ungrateful, all this stuff. And after living on the streets on the West Coast, eventually I ended up down in Argentina on a mission trip, and I saw actual abject poverty, and it crushed me. And now I come back here, and like you're saying, all these people that still have the same blinders that I had, they're going along with it. And to me, it looks like this Marxism's infiltrating all the institutions. It's starting in middle school, going into the high school, all the way through, and it's at the public library, all this stuff. So we're trying to get involved. We've been going to House District meetings. We've gotten to meet Representative Zelensker and Kristen Robbins, and my question is how do I keep plugging in? What more can I do? How do we keep trying to affect this change? Which it's overwhelming when I'm like, it's like this communist
How do you
sea.
ask your question?
It is indeed a sea, and it's more like an ocean. It's a wave, that's coming at us. And you're completely correct. I mean, the infiltration within academia, the long march through the institutions, as Antonio Gramsci, famous, it was all about that, infiltrating every aspect of society, and also through the robes of society. Who are the robes? Well, those who wear robes, the preachers, the politicians, well, old school, politicians, the teachers, the professors, all that. So it's all about infiltration. What you are doing right now is fantastic. And I thank you for that, because more people need to do that. More people need to take a stand. And I'm glad that you have embodied the mentality of, I'm going to take care of my young. I'm going to teach. I have no idea how to do it. Neither do I. Neither does my wife. We're going to figure it out, because this is our responsibility and this is our future. You're doing it. You're already doing what is necessary. The school board meetings, just confronting them. You may not have immense change, especially in a place like this. You might not have a lot of immense change, but you're making your voice heard. And more people hear your voice, and they're emboldened. It's the domino effect. And I always play the domino effect. Get more people involved so that they can join your cause. They see you doing it enough, they want to join in, and then pretty soon you have an army. So continue doing exactly what you were doing. I appreciate you, Adam. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, guys, I think that wraps it about up. Stephen, I don't know if you have any final words to say to anyone, but any final words you can give it to?
Honestly, as I was saying, Adam, just keep going, keep plugging at it. Stand your ground. This is how we get our country back. We get our country back on track is if we love America, stand for America, promote America, stand as patriots for our country. Stop embodying the radicalism on either side, and get back to coming in the middle and unifying once more.
Yeah, I hope you guys took something out of it. I know I did for sure. That was a lot. But Stephen, you're awesome. We thank you for coming here today. But that wraps it up for this event, everyone. Thank you for coming.